flags at? Remember when people would hang those? They've been taken down, they all been replaced with BLM flags or a rainbow.
Okay, so the flag idea, man, that's a complicated idea. So the idea of a flag is something like the idea of a staff. And a staff, well, you have a staff if you run a business, and a staff is something you rely on. A staff is something that supports you. A staff is something that moves you forward. A staff is something that helps you find your way. A flag is a staff with a banner. And so the banner is something around which everyone can unite. A flag is a uniting symbol. Okay, so what's a rainbow flag? Well, let's think about it. It's a flag of division. Literally, because a rainbow is the division of a unity, what's white, into a plurality, what's a rainbow. And you can't have a unity of plurality. Well, you can in a world where a man can be a woman, you can have a unity of plurality. And I'll tell you, that's the reign of utter chaos. Now, we already pointed out that the reign of utter chaos brings in the psychopaths, the true oppressors, the real victimizers. And so, this pride flag, what would you say, waving, this proclamation, this praying in the streets, this false moralizing is a way of, once again, proclaiming to the world that your compassion is so overwhelming and inclusive that you can love the whole world, and that's fine, except for the snakes. And, you can imagine why women do that, because in some ways they want to advertise to men that they're going to be good mothers, and that is what they're doing, even if they don't know it. And then you might ask, well, why would men do it? And I'll tell you what sort of men do that. The sort of men who do that have no masculine utility whatsoever. And so they ape feminine utility. They act like girls. That's a good way of thinking about it. Then they can be a friend. Well, hopefully a friend with sexual benefits, right? And so loser men use false compassion pridefully as a way of attracting stupid women. And they're particularly good at doing that if they're psychopathic. And the data on that are very clear, because young women, especially naive young women, are much more likely to be sexually victimized by psychopaths and narcissists. And you might ask, well, how will the psychopaths and narcissists close themselves? And the answer is that they're not going to come out with shark teeth on, man, because then you'd know who they were. They're going to tell you how nice they are, how lovely they are, and how they care for everything in the world. It's like, you better take that with a grain of salt, because if you don't, you're going to pay for it. So we'll get back to that particular motif as we progress.
This ain't rap, this ain't money, cars and clothes. We ain't selling drugs, we ain't gonna overdose. We ain't pushing guns, ain't promoting stripper poles. We won't turn your sons into thugs or your daughters into hoes.
Okay, sons into thugs and your daughters into hoes. Yeah, that's a great juxtaposition, all of that. So the first thing Tom is doing is singing about hedonism, right? And that's the pursuit of, say, easy sex and materialist markers of localized success, right? And so then you might say, well, what sort of people pursue short-term mating strategies, because that's the technical biological definition, who are looking for easy sex, one-night stands, and who parade around their shallow materialism? And the answer is, we already talked about these people. We know this. Short-term mating preference is associated with the dark tetrad. Narcissism, so that's the desire for unearned social status. Machiavellianism, so that's the willingness to use manipulation to get what you want. Psychopathy, so the worst criminals are psychopaths, by the way. Psychopaths are predatory parasites. That's a bad combination. Now, first of all, those were the only 3 traits that were studied, but that didn't work out very well, because it turned out there was a missing variable, and that was sadism. So if you're a psychopathic, narcissist, Machiavellian, you also end up wanting to hurt other people for your own pleasure. And those are the people who are engaging in the hedonistic strategy, right? Short-term pleasure. You see this, and they're the ones that'll enslave you. You see this in the Disney movie Pinocchio. It's beautifully portrayed, because the little thugs, Pinocchio falls in with the bad crowd, little thugs, led by Lampwick, by the way, and Lampwick is a reference to Lucifer, and Lucifer is the prideful intellect, by the way. And so Pinocchio, who's trying to become real, follows Lampwick and the coachman, who's like Satan himself, to Pleasure Island, where they do things like desecrate classic works of art. We've seen plenty of that lately. And they turn into braying jackasses who are then enslaved by dark forces operating behind the scenes. You remember that? Go watch that section of the movie and see if you can figure out what the hell it means. So what does it mean? There's something deep here. This thug-ho thing is extremely deep. So I'm going to read you something that you'll find quite interesting here. So this is from the book of Revelation, and it's quite a shocking account. This is really a hallucinogenic vision. And so this is the vision in Revelation 17:1-8. One of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment on the great prostitute who sits on many waters." Okay, so the great prostitute is the mother of all prostitutes, right? So it's disinhibited. It's the essence of disinhibited female sexuality. And what does it mean that it sits on many waters? Well, water in the biblical account is a symbol of chaos. And so underneath disinhibited female sexuality is chaos itself, right? The chaos that devours everything. With whom the kings of the earth committed sexual immorality, and earth's inhabitants were made drunk with the wine of her sexual immorality. Well, we can see the emergence of the whore of Babylon, because that's what that is. Babylon being the great state, by the way. We can see that emergence in the technological transformation of women into, what would you say, succubi and incubi. That's a very good way of thinking about it, right? So sexually attractive apparitions that take everyone's vitality. So that's real fun. The account continues, "And he carried me away in the power of the Spirit into a wilderness. And I saw a woman, the same woman, the whore of Babylon, sitting on a scarlet-colored wild beast," so that's blood-colored, essentially, "that was full of blasphemous names, and that had 7 heads and 10 horns." Okay, so this is the beast of the state. And the multiplicity of heads, that's what occurs when the state no longer has its unity. So you could associate that, for example, with the pride flag, the rainbow idea, the notion that diversity can be a unity. It's the collapse of a unity as a consequence of the death of God into the beast of the state. Okay, so what rides on the beast of the state? The idiot hedonism that power-mad tyrants entice you with to turn you into slaves, right? Now, this hallucinogenic account is a image-laden, imaginative description of how societies collapse as such, so how they collapse in eternity. So the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, and she was adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. So she's beautiful and attractive and looks valuable, and that's her cover story. And she had in her hand a golden cup, same sort of thing. A golden cup is generally the container of the redeeming fluid, let's say, the redeeming liquid, the water of life, the blood of Christ. And so this is an inversion of that. It's the golden cup that was full of disgusting things and the unclean things of her sexual immorality. So that's a pretty damn rough image, you might say. And that's what she's offering the world to drink. Great. On her forehead was written a name, a mystery. Babylon the Great, the mother of the prostitutes and of the disgusting things of the earth. Okay, well, that's fun. Now, I wrote a whole article about that called Identity, Individual and the State versus the Subsidiary Hierarchy of Heaven. I wrote that for the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship with Jonathan Pageau, where we took apart this particular imagery. So what happens in the Revelation story is the whore of Babylon sits on the degenerate beast of the state, offering everyone hedonic delights allied with power, and the beast eventually kills the whore. And so what does that mean? It means the bloody tyrants will offer you everything you want. And you can have it right now, just like the half-wit dimwits in Pinocchio's Treasure Island. But eventually they will take everything like that from you. And you can see that already, not least in the fact that young people are becoming sexually sated and overflowing in a manner that's actually stopping them from forming relationships, stopping them from getting married, stopping them from being with one another, staying virginal. Like the end result of hedonic licentiousness, and this is what Tom is pointing to, the end result of that is that nobody ever gets anything pleasurable at all. Right, so I wouldn't recommend that either.